Welcome back to Too Hot for TV. We are the podcast that looks at all things expanded universe. Today, it's the turn of Dracula, and I'm joined by Ross from the General Witchfinders. Ross, hello, welcome.
Hello, Dylan. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Is all well with you?
Yes, we've had a pre-show chat, and I've vented on that, and now I feel as light as a feather, and I'm good. Yes.
Excellent. As always, we're looking at the expanded universe of our subject today, which is Dracula. So Dracula obviously started life as a book, published way back in May of 1897. It's been adapted many times in virtually all forms of media, and has been adapted for film, television, video games and animation over 700 times, with nearly 1,000 additional appearances in comic books, on the stage, in audios, things like that. And Dracula has appeared twice as many times as Sherlock Holmes.
Wow, and we're going to go through each one of those in order tonight.
It's going to be the world's longest podcast. It's going to last a week.
And when you say extended media, so that anything apart from the novel is basically going to be extended on in this?
Yes, exactly. You know,
Okay.
Look, the format for this podcast now is very, very loose.
Yeah.
It starts life as one thing, and I'll explore it anywhere else. So we're going to cover 2 audio productions today, although one of them started life as a potential film. But presumably, you do a podcast about folk horror, British horror, horror films, horror TV. You're a Dracula fan, I take it?
Yes, I was thinking about when did I get really into Dracula, because I thought this might come up. And it was when the Bram Stoker's Dracula movie was coming out. And I think I had a paper round at the time. And I mainly did the paper round in order to have money to buy comics. And the guy in the shop would only buy American comics if someone bought all of them. So I had to get enough money to buy every version of Spider-Man, Thor, Fantastic Four, all that kind of stuff, even though I was only interested in Spider-Man. But then I saw that they had a Dracula comic adaptation of the movie, which was drawn by Mike Mignola, and it's absolutely brilliant. So if anyone can find that, check that out. But there was also a magazine, and it was called something like The Ultimate Dracula or something like that. And I was more like into like the comic. I bought that because it was a cool looking comic. But I bought this magazine as well, and it was just basically a little bit about the making of the Francis Ford Coppola movie, but there was all about all these other different adaptations of Dracula, and it was all about like the Spanish version when they made the Bela Lugosi one, and there was a whole thing about Anne Rice, which I'd never heard about, and I thought, oh, this sounds interesting, I won a prize at school, and it was like, you can have a book, and I got Into the Vampire as my book, so 3, because I thought this, and it just opened up this whole world of Dracula to me. And when I was very little, my dad used to record all the, there must have been a season of Universal Horrors, and my dad used to record all those for me. And I was shit scared of vampires. I used to sleep with the covers over my head, making a cross sign with my fingers. And every so often I'd get up in the night and put my finger in my brother's mouth to check he hadn't grown fangs. So vampires really scared me when I was younger, and I had that sort of like in my kind of like messed up child DNA, and finding this magazine which just showed me this whole world of vampires. I think I read all of the Anne Rice books. I got my dad to take me to see Bram Stoker's Dracula. I think I was nearly 17 or just 17, so I was got really nervous about sneaking in to go and see it as well. I bought the Annie Lennox single, and then I just started going to go to graveyards and drawing weeping angels, basically, and doing paintings of them at school. Yeah, so I got Dracula-fied from that point on. Yeah, and I don't know what it is about it, but it was... And also reading the book, it was just like, I just read that over and over and over again. I think it was the first book I ever read, which was made up of diary entries and newspaper reports. And it just felt, for such an old book, it just felt like revolutionary to me.
Yeah.
It was just like a eye-opening moment for me.
I think there's something quite alluring about Dracula and vampires when you're a teenager and you feel like you don't fit in, as all teenagers do.
Mm-hmm.
The universal thing of teenagers is they don't fit in, but yet, like, they're surrounded by people that don't fit in. And it's one of the few things where the villain is the protagonist, you know, almost the person you want to be. Like,
well, he kind of became that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
No one wants to be Van Helsing. Like, there's nobody aspiring to be that guy until they do, like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I feel, or something like that. So I think it's quite a natural thing because you're drawn to it, and there's a sort of sexuality to it as well when you're most likely a teenager and not shagging anything, even though you want to.
So when I never got that, because I never sort of understood. I think I might have just been too sheltered as a teenager, because reading those magazines and stuff that everyone was always going on about, like how sexy vampires were, and I just found them more scary than sexy. And I just never saw the connotation between penetration with fangs and penetration with other things and stuff, because it always felt to me like it really confused me as a teenager.
Well, I guess in terms of the time it was written, it's very much a subtext, even though now we would see it almost as just text.
Text, yeah.
But then when you get things like the Hammer horror films and stuff like that, where not only is there the sort of that hypnotic thing he does, but it's very much about attraction, and by, sort of 3 films into their Dracula run, it's tits, tits, tits everywhere.
Yeah, and orgasmic sighing when they get bitten, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But that's drawn out of the book and just sort of expanded on. And then as we get more into sort of the 80s and 90s, the vampires, it becomes this thing where they turn into this really grotesque thing, which I think, I can't say for certain where it starts, but the Francis Ford Coppola one is the one that sort of sticks out as the start point, and then you get into like Dusk Till Dawn and stuff like that.
Yeah,
where
that sort of screwed up face-looking vampire.
Yeah. Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula was my big in. Like,
yeah.
I don't think any of us could put our hand on our heart and go, when was the first time we heard of Dracula or vampires? It's just so part of popular culture. Yeah. Like, it's just there from day one.
The groovy ghoulies and stuff like that when you were growing up,
Even like Count Duckula, things like that. The Count in Sesame Street, like it's just there. But
I've got a picture, a school photograph. I must have been about 7, and for some reason, I put my hair into a widow's peak like Dracula, and the school photographer didn't change it. And then they gave it to my mum for free because I looked so mental in it. And I got the school picture of me with Dracula hairstyle. So it's just always there.
Yeah, it just has been. So the Coppola film for me came a few years later when it got its big ITV or BBC One premiere.
But you're just a youngster, aren't you, Dylan?
Yeah, well, there's what? There's only like 4 or 5 years between us, something like that.
Yeah. I do feel like your dad, though.
But when you're a teenager, the difference between being a 17, 18-year-old and being a 12, 13-year-old in terms of what you get to see film-wise is very different, whereas, not so much now. And from there, I remember, because it was a big deal, because that's how television functioned back then, of like the premiere of this on national television. There was documentaries and time programs and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then I'm sure it felt like a week, but it could have been a year. There was a run on BBC 2 or Channel 4 of Hammer horror Dracula films. And I was recording them. And at that point, I was just in.
And the world went vampire crazy for a little while, didn't it?
Yeah.
Into Vampire came out, the movie. Buffy became a thing, and it was just, it was just everywhere.
Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, Dusk Till Dawn, and Interview with a Vampire are like very formative films. They were owned on video in my house, and we played them again and again and again.
Yeah,
because...
and Lost Boys for us as well. And the Lost Boys soundtrack just on loop all the time. It was just so cool. And I got, as a present, the rule book for Vampire the Masquerade roleplay game, and had no one to play it with. So I would just like spend ages reading the rules.
I would have played it with you, mate.
Oh, yeah. And like make up character sheets and all that kind of stuff. And just like hoping one day someone would come and take me down the graveyard and bite me. Yeah. Sucker me from it. Yeah. Anyway. See, I'm not into the sex side of vampires. Yeah. Anyway.
So it's just been there for my entire life, I think. And if I'm ever at a loss, it's between the first things I'll look up is vampire films or post-apocalyptic films that I haven't seen before, or ones I have seen and just want to revisit. Because someone's always making an okay vampire film or an okay post-apocalyptic film. It doesn't have to be amazing, but it'll hit enough things that you'll be like, oh, I didn't know that came out. There's no reason why you should. It went straight to Netflix and it languished in the bottom there. But you will always find something when you're bored. So it's just one of my go-tos, and I think it will be until the day that I die.
But are you like me, though, that I feel like, because I think that the Francis Ford Coppola version of Dracula, it was so overwhelmingly good, and I think it was just like, the music in the cinema, it was, and like the blood and the design and the color, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before.
Yeah.
It's like I can't see any other adaptation of Dracula now, and I'm thinking, well, this is not any good. Like I went and saw Nosferatu recently, and I was like, it's not as good as that.
I can see new versions of it that are old and be fine with them, but anything that comes after that version, I'm comparing it against the Francis Ford Coppola version, and you're right. Like, I did not care for Nosferatu and any other versions. So at that point, I much prefer Dracula or vampires in new stories, because I feel like the Bram Stoker version has been done for me to the definitive level.
And I feel like as it gets older, it just gets better, because it just, the look of it is so of that time. Yeah. And I can't explain what I'm trying to say, but it just looks amazing. I watch it every couple of years, and I'm like just blown away by it still.
The spectacle of that film at the time just felt like nothing you'd ever seen. But as you say, now you look at it and it is of its time.
Yeah.
But it's just very stylized for that era. And I can completely see why there's some 17-year-old who saw Nosferatu and got obsessed with it, and then they'll go and watch Francis Ford Coppola's version and go, well, that's not as good.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's the first one to wow you, isn't it?
Yeah, but also it's the first one that didn't look like Dracula. You know, it didn't look like Bela Lugosi. Everyone had copied up, and it was just. We just turned. This is just us talking about that film now. We got to talk about it.
We're doing them all 700.
Yes.
Remember?
Sorry, yeah, all 700. But it's just. I thought it was such a brave film, and the cast are amazing, and I even like Keanu in it. I think he can do no wrong.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I think it all works. It all works. But Dracula does have a lot of other adventures in films. It gets a lot of sequels, be it the Universal one, Dracula's Daughter, and many other things, or the Hammer horror films getting many and many sequel, including a Hammer horror film that was never made called The Unquenchable Thirst of Dracula.
Oh, well done.
See that? It's a link. It's a link.
Yeah, it's great.
Which eventually made its way into the public as a radio play on BBC Radio 4 on the 28th of October, 2017 at 2:30 in the afternoon, no less.
Really? Yeah. Okay, considering some of the things in it.
It was directed by Mark Gatiss. It was produced by Lawrence Bowen, presumably not Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen.
Maybe, because he was involved with League of Gentlemen, wasn't he?
Was he?
And he was in that super long, and he loves dressing up like Dracula, doesn't he? So maybe it was.
Oh, wow. And the script was adapted for radio by Mark Gatiss and Lawrence Bowen. Now, at the time, we are steeped in IP, nostalgia, and superheroes in terms of what's going on in the cinema and on television. So in the cinema, we've got things like Logan, The Last Jedi, Blade Runner 2049, Alien Covenant, The Mummy, Resident Evil Final Chapter, then a load of superhero films, including Wonder Woman, Justice League, Guardians of the Galaxy. Exciting horror film out there. The only really exciting new one I could find was Get Out. On television, again, loads and loads of superheroes. It's The Defenders, it's Flash, it's Gotham. And then we've got 12 Monkeys, The Orville, Star Trek Discovery, and Doctor Who Series 10. So this is like pre-COVID. Genre essentially is at an all-time high, and everybody just loves a bit of genre.
Happy times, and it's just we're just all going to be happy forever, and every superhero film is going to get better than the last, and have even more people coming to see it. Oh, brilliant!
Well, that was the year that it all goes wrong with Justice League, doesn't it? And everybody goes, "Oh, maybe not all superhero films are good."
Yeah,
and it's been a slow spiral down ever since then.
Too hot for TV.
In British India in 1934, Penny, a young Englishwoman, travels by train to discover the fate of her missing sister. She meets Prem and Lakshmi, siblings engaged to perform at the palace of the Maharaja and his Rani, where a mysterious European guest is staying. Penny accompanies them to the remote palace and learns that her sister has been drawn into a secretive blood cult operating in caverns beneath it. The cult is preparing a sacrificial ritual to serve Count Dracula, who has travelled east and placed the palace under his sinister influence. When the ritual begins, Penny and her allies disrupt the ceremony. The cult is destroyed and Dracula is confronted and ultimately slain. The cavern collapses, ending the vampire's reign and the cult's practices, and Penny escapes alive, finally learning the truth about her sister's fate as the nightmare is brought to an end.
Too hot for TV.
As I said, this starts life as a script in the 70s for a film, but it makes its way to radio. I think it's quite fitting it makes its way to radio at this point where we're mining popular culture and nostalgia's a very powerful thing. Have you heard this before?
No, you helped me find this when we were thinking about doing it for General Witchfinders, but the other two guys are too hard to control and ended up doing something else.
They just watched K9 and Company, but they're not going to listen to this.
I know, but it all came down to how long is it? But I squirreled it away because I thought that and we were talking that we might do something Dracula related at some point, so I thought I'd hold it back. I'm really glad we listened to it because it's really interesting, and I think that if they had made it, it probably would have been one of my favourite Hammer Draculas. It's interesting because I do like Dracula stuff, but I find it quite hard to find anything which is any good because there's just so much stuff.
Yeah.
I think the problem with Dracula adjacent things is they seem to want to make him like this all-powerful king of the vampires, or like someone it's almost like them. I know this is not Doctor Who Too Hot for TV, but it's a similar problem where someone was a character has been popular in the past.
Yeah,
everyone loves that character, and when they bring him back, they go, he's really powerful, and he's like the most powerful version of this in the world, and every story you put in him now has got to be like world-changing consequences. So Anno Dracula, that book by Kim Newman, he's going to be the king of England, and he's going to have all these armies and all that kind of stuff. When the actual story is just basically something happening to a group of friends.
Yeah,
you know, there's kind of implications that if he gets to London, stuff might start kicking off, but he's not there. I'm coming to take over the British Empire so much. It's just he's just a horny guy who wants to go and shag John Varker's wife because he saw a picture of her.
We've all been there.
Yeah, so I'm quite wary of like looking at new Dracula related things because you feel like it's just going to have Dracula in it, but he's not going to be the character. It's not going to be a small story about a small group of people. So this is quite a good prospect for me because it's something from the 60s, 70s sort of time where people hadn't blown him up out of all proportion to be something bigger than he is.
Yeah, I think there's something interesting about the Hammer films, and there are 6 or 7 with Christopher Lee, I think, and then various other.
We end up arguing about this all the time. What's an official Dracula film?
Within those films, Dracula's just doing his thing. Ultimately, he is a horny guy who wants to drink the blood of busty maids. Yeah. And even when characters within the later Hammer films put him on a pedestal, including this one, he's not interested. He doesn't want to be the ruler of the world. Yeah. There is the one film towards the tail end, Satanic Rites, where he's thinking of destroying the world, but that's mainly because he's just so sick of all this bullshit.
Yeah, and losing all the time. It's like every time I come back, you kill me. Yeah. So, fuck this, I'm just going to destroy everyone. But even then, in Satanic Rites of Dracula, I feel like, and this is how, like, if I was going to do Dracula-related stuff now, and like they kind of imply some in this story, he's being used by other people because they think, oh, there's something powerful here, let's use it. But then, like you said, he's not that interested in doing the things which the people who are kind of like facilitating him, he just wants to do whatever he wants, really.
Let's jump a little bit into the background of this film and stop me if you know anything different. Mm-hmm. So it was originally conceived as a follow-up to Scars of Dracula, and it was written around 1970. Hammer had contractual obligations with Warner Brothers to give them first refusal on the Dracula stuff, but EMI's distribution of Scars caused friction. The Hammer Warner Brothers program was supposed to get back on track with the Unquenchable Thirst of Dracula. Ultimately, it didn't, and it was put to one side for a little bit. But Warner Brothers essentially had a large amount of rupees frozen in an Indian bank account.
Yeah. I love filmmaking from this era. It's amazing.
Because Hammer are in this period, I think, where we call it the decline of Hammer. They do make films for, pretty much most of the 70s.
They're just looking for money from anywhere, basically, aren't they?
Yeah. And so It's why you can't get like a definitive Hammer box set on DVD or Blu-ray, because different studios own different films.
Yeah.
At some point, the script's not working. They're not quite able to get it off the ground. So they make Dracula AD 1972, which is an amazing film you've covered on your podcast with Dracula in the 70s.
It's interesting because, like, Scars of Dracula was a bit of a reboot for them anyway, and it wasn't great. Chris really looks awful in it, and some of the bats are terrible. That's the one with Minder in it as well, isn't it?
Yes.
And it'd be interesting because this doesn't feel like it's a sequel to Scars of Dracula. It feels like it's another reboot. But it's interesting that this is another reboot, but it's a period reboot. Whereas when you get to the last two, not talking about the Kung Fu Dracula one, but the last, they suddenly had the idea of putting it into the modern day, and I think that was a brilliant. It sounds obvious to us to do that, but it was a stroke of genius for them, and I feel like that just gave it a complete new lease of life. Because I think that they were just retreading the same ground over and over again up until this point. And I think rebooting Scars of Dracula and just basically just doing the same thing again, but cheaper and a bit shitter was not the way forward. The way they ended up going was like bringing it to modern day, but doing this, like sending it Dracula and the Temple of Doom, I think that would have been a great idea. Like Dracula turning up in different countries or different scenarios and stuff would have been a really good way of doing it.
I think those two modern day Dracula films, AD 72 and Satanic Rites of Dracula, are brilliant. And I could have seen that continuing on and on and on. But for many reasons, it doesn't. And you're right, it does get away from all the Dracula films before that Hammer do. Sort of have this thing of a village somewhere is under terror. A bunch of people end up in a castle. They get picked off one by one. And the climax of the film is all set in a castle.
Yeah.
So they do well to sort of shake things up. Even if AD 72 largely follows that format, it's just modern day London and an old church.
Yeah, just a funky 70s London, though.
But it's stylistically different. The directorial style's different. So while 72 and Satanic Rites are happening, this is floating around in the background, and it's handed over to Don Horton, who also wrote the Doctor Who stories Inferno and Mind of Evil. And he starts kicking around ideas. After Satanic Rites of Dracula, we get the Legends of the Seven Golden Vampires, which was basically Warner / Hammer cashing in on the Kung Fu craze. And I think they partnered with the Shaw Brothers or a company similar to make this awful vampire Kung Fu film that just doesn't really work.
And it doesn't tie in with, like, the other ones, apart from Scars, you could almost see it as like a continuation.
Yeah.
Whereas this just feels like it's just something which has just been dropped anywhere. Even Christopher Lee wouldn't do it.
Yeah. So we get a really camp Dracula at the start.
Who then transforms himself into some kind of Chinese monk. It's an absolutely awful film. But there are some interesting bits in it. Having like in Chinese culture, like vampires like hop. Yeah. And like seeing the hopping vampires in it, it's just like that. It's just mad, and it looks really interesting. And them coming out of the ground in a kind of like the Plague of the Zombies way as well is actually quite creepy. But so there's some merits to it. Also, Peter Cushing, I think he's wearing his Doctor Who costume in it, isn't he?
It's very similar.
Yeah, very similar. So you could almost. If you squint, this could be Doctor Who versus Chinese vampires as well.
Well, now you say it like that, it's a classic.
Yeah.
After that, Warner is still trying to get hold of these rupees they've got frozen. And it sort of makes sense of like, okay, so we've done them in China, let's go back to India. But by that point, because Seven Golden Vampires didn't do that well, everybody just sort of lost interest in the idea. So we end up with this script being completely abandoned.
Yeah.
And instead they start focusing on a film written by Ice Warriors creator from Doctor Who, Brian Hales, who had written a drama for radio about Vlad the Impaler, and they try and turn it into something called Lord Dracula. But that doesn't materialise either. And so the Unquenchable Thirst of Dracula, which was also sometimes known as the Insatiable Thirst of Dracula, is lost until 2017.
Insatiable sounds better than Unquenchable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Unquenchable just feels like he's thirsty.
Yeah, it's like when you're hungover and you drink 2 litres of water and you're still thirsty.
Or like the time I was really hungover in Brick Lane and the only shop was open, I just bought the first can of anything not realising it was full of big lumps of tapioca. And having that go when you're very, very hungover and not expecting big lumps of stuff going down your throat, it was just, it all came straight back out again.
Well, that's exactly what would have happened to Christopher Lee in India, I'm sure.
Yes, it would, yeah. So that's another thing. Would he have done it? Because, he was really coming off of this. But, I don't know, maybe if it was a free holiday, if they actually filmed it in India as well, but he might have been tempted. But if it was like Carry On Up the Khyber, and it was just filmed somewhere in England with lots of blacked up, English actors, it would have been terrible. So.
Well, say what you like about Seven Golden Vampires, but, it was a co-production. That's what they're aiming for this. Yeah. So I imagine it would have been filmed on location in India. Yeah. So it would have at least had that authenticity, because judging by this, I'm sure they would have tried, but I don't know how you get away with it in the UK. But this radio production then, does it feel like a Hammer horror film?
It feels like, when you was a kid, did you get the tape and book adaptations of films?
Yeah.
Where you would have, so it feels like they made this film and then this is the tape and book version of that film. So in my mind, I kept expecting R2-D2 so when you hear the chirp of this droid, turn the page now. That's what it felt like.
You've got the C60 tape that the film is 90 minutes and you're like, how are they going to get it all on here? And it's like, the narrator's going to speak very fast and explain some key bits.
Yeah, and loads of the voices are going to be just people doing weird impressions of the people out of the films. For years, my version of Star Trek the Motion Picture was the book and tape version. And I've got to say, the movie version being probably 12 times as long, I much prefer the book and tape version of it.
For me, it feels like a Hammer horror. There's a sort of heightenedness to the acting, but they're not parodying.
No.
But it's very much like performances you would have given in the 70s, not that you give now. But I think they've tried to take it as seriously as possible. There's always something that's aged badly in a Hammer film, or that's maybe slightly being sent up by one of the performers giving a more comical performance. But there's no real comedy in this, I don't think, or any sending up.
There are weird bits in it where you feel like, this is the bit where there would be a booby dance. And there's even a bit there's bits where women are made to get scantily dressed and dance for men.
Yeah.
And there's even a bit like he does it and then you go, well, do it again. And you feel like, you don't need to do it again.
Yeah.
We're not even getting to see this dance happening.
Yeah. But that's the exploitation bit of the film, isn't it? That you just don't get on radio. Although, who knows, in the Reptile, there's a weird sitar scene where nobody gets their tits out. Maybe it would have just been that.
It's very strange. Where the dad makes his daughter do it.
Yeah.
Looks like he's getting turned on, then smashes up a sitar. That's Serverland, wasn't it?
It was indeed. So, does it work as a radio adaptation? You've talked a bit about the narration and stuff like that.
It's an unusual way of doing it, but I'm used to sort of full cast, big finish, and if anything, I think I like this version of it, because you don't have people sort of describing what they're seeing.
Yeah.
You just cut to Michael Sheen describing it, and he was doing a really good job. And I thought the way he was narrating it, the way he was speeding things up and slowing things down, it gave a nice pace to the action, and it was really good.
They've obviously embellished some of the stage directions, but it feels pretty much, maybe they crossed through a few problematic lines and things like that, but it felt very much like they'd gone, oh, we can actually tell the story by just the script's stage directions, and we might need to embellish this bit more and that bit more. And as you say, don't underestimate Michael Sheen's ability to narrate it, because he gives it a certain welly and a certain pace at high points.
Yeah. And there were bits in it, like we said, where they got the dancing in there, and this way they describe it, where some of the women as being, and she was very attractive. Did feel like Patrick Stewart in Extras sort of describing some of his encounters.
So what about the story? Does it feel like it moves the Dracula franchise on from where it was in Seven Golden Vampires?
Definitely. I think because you got a female protagonist at the beginning, which is great. It's not something which we really see too much, isn't it? It's normally a male hero in it. And I think just having it in another location and having it sort of ambiguous to who obviously Dracula's the bad guy, but there was an organisation. I got this sort of death cult, very similar to Temple of Doom. I felt.
I was thinking Temple of Doom all the way through.
But this was written before Temple of Doom, wasn't it? Yeah. So there's a death cult who are basically using Dracula, they think, to sort of as part of their kind of rituals. But then they get to the point where they're starting to get a bit sick of him, and sort of there's a bit of a power play between them, and that's interesting. There's a bit in it where they sort of they're bringing. It does feel really convoluted that like they send people out to find women to sort of like transport them quite a long way in order to sort of have them dance around in front of him and then kill them. You feel like, why are you going to all this?
Well, he's got a larder, hasn't he? That's what they say at one point. And he's got just loads of women in this larder. And it's like, why do you need more? Like, kill those ones. Once they're drained, we'll get you another one. But you're just drawing attention to yourself, mate.
But it did feel quite Epstein-y to me. It did feel like these are people who have got shitloads of money and they're bored, and it's just like, well, how can we make our life interesting? Or let's just make this really, really convoluted, our sort of weird, pervy kind of entrapment of women, you know. But we've also got this mystery as well at the beginning, which it felt to me like, why is she hiding the fact that she's looking for a sister? So the main lady, I'm really bad with names.
Penny.
I thought she was brilliant. Performed it really well as well. But we see her and she's acting as if like, oh, I just decided to go on holiday to India. I don't know why. And I just, it was too hot. So I asked where was a cooler place to go. And it's just on the train. But she's actually secretly looking for her sister. But it was quite ambiguous because it felt to me like they were kind of implying that maybe she was being drawn there by Dracula, because they kept having these kind of like, they felt like flashbacks, but later on we find it's her remembering some of the correspondence she's been having with her sister. That was a little bit ambiguous, and I found that a little bit confusing. But that just also made me think of Nosferatu, because I still don't really understand why Count Orlok, is it in Nosferatu? Yeah, it was kind of implied that he was conjured up by Johnny Depp's daughter, but I didn't really understand why or how. But but she was a lonely goth, so she conjured up like a stinky old Cossack to come and terrorise her. I'm digressing. I can't remember where I was going with this.
Yeah, about Penny's sort of mission and reason for being there. Like, there is no reason to keep it quiet. Like, in fact, if you're looking for someone, you should really be shouting about it.
And asking for help. Exactly.
Yeah. I think the story just about holds together, like in this radio version. I think it's got a great pace. And I can see it all, the narration, the acting. And I'm seeing it in a Hammer horror style, complete with bad choices every now and then, I'm sure. But I just think they've managed to capture it so well. And, you know, big shout outs to the narration, as I said, because it just works so well. I think placing it within Indian culture's interesting. And now I don't think that's very shocking, you know, like, because there are like big cultural differences, although as we become more global, the cultural differences sort of fade away a little bit and everything gets intertwined. But in the 70s, you might have had an uncle or a dad who worked for the British Empire in a colony somewhere like India and considered them all sort of savages, you know, or something like that, of just this bizarre culture that they had there. So it's the reason why the Temple of Doom world feels so bizarre. But actually, like, because it's sort of pulling on those stereotypes of they eat monkeys' heads and stuff, those savages.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, when I was watching it, I was thinking, oh, this is just Temple of Doom, that's cool. Then I thought, oh, hang on, is Temple of Doom problematic now? And I was trying to work out, should I think it's problematic? I think I should.
I think it's a representation of India that's told through a white prism of people who came back from there and told stories of how bizarre everything is. But, you know, now they're walking around, they're watching Netflix, driving a car and looking on their iPhone. So it may look slightly different, and there's religious and cultural things that are different here, but they show up to England and go, you do what? You fucking weirdos.
Yeah.
It's born from that world where we were all told that Western culture was like proper and everything else was
just weird.
It's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah. I thought the guy playing Dracula was really good.
Yeah.
He gave enough of Christopher Lee that I could see him in my mind, and I really liked like the sounds he was making when he was like kind of like being aggressive. It's better than the hissing in the next thing we watch. It's just they just hiss all the time, whereas he felt like he sounded like powerful and frightening. But did you see what his other main acting credit was?
It was dead ringers, is what I got.
Yeah, a Postman Pat. He's the voice of Postman Pat, apparently.
Oh wow! So he's very much an audio actor.
Yes.
To be honest, I'm surprised Mark Gatiss didn't cast himself in the role, but I guess he was going for authenticity. And this guy, as you say, he brings Christopher Lee. It's not an impersonation, so it is different. But he certainly channels Lee's Dracula in a way that other performers bring their own takes, if you know what I mean. He's just got it like, no, I'm trying to be Christopher Lee.
He probably had more lines than Christopher Lee had in the last 4 Hammer horror films as well. There was also an interesting portrayal of Dracula. There's a bit where he's fed once already, and he's coming back to look for the woman he's fed upon, and they've killed her, and they show him like lapping the blood up off the floor.
Yeah.
And that made him feel, to me, like slightly pathetic.
Yeah.
And like he's not that all-powerful.
Yeah.
Like, you can take his food away, and then he becomes desperate, and I quite like that.
There's an interesting power play between him and...
Rani.
The Rani, yes. Rani and the Maharaja, essentially.
Yes,
who are in league with Dracula. But they're sort of keeping him prisoner, but they also know Dracula can get one up on... So there's an interesting power play, and I think that's much more interesting than Dracula being all-powerful or them holding him captive and we know he's going to escape. They're in it together, but they're also got their own agendas, and at different points the other person has the upper hand. And
also, like, the Rani and the Maharaja have got, like, this sort of army of cultists as well. So that it's also... The Dracula isn't all-powerful. Like I said, modern retellings of that character make him, I think, too powerful. Yeah. Sometimes in Hammer stuff, it's almost like he could be killed by anything. It's almost because they have to do a different way of killing him each time.
Yeah.
So that ends up being get caught in a bush or a shadow of a cross goes across him, and it becomes almost ridiculous at how vulnerable he actually is. But it was here like that, he is dangerous when it's like maybe him against like half a dozen people, but if you had a shitload of cultists there, he's screwed at that point. Yeah. So I quite like that he's a danger, but also sort of something which you could potentially beat.
Although in this, isn't he stopped by a bullet?
No, he gets put up on the top of that tower, doesn't he? Does he get shot?
I think he gets shot.
He gets hurt, and then he runs up. There's a tower which talk about at the beginning, where I think the Hindu people put their bodies to be picked clean by vultures.
Yeah.
He gets hurt and chased up this tower, at which point I was thinking, can't he fly? I'm sure that we've seen him as a bat many times before, but they say he's tending his wounds up on the top of this tower, and then as the sun comes up, he gets attacked by vultures.
Right,
which is like, sounds cool. We've seen how bad they are at doing bats in Hammer, so them trying to have Christopher Lee on a tower being attacked by stuffed vultures would have been awful. But in my mind, this version, it was a really quite cool ending for him.
Yeah, absolutely. How does it compare to the other Hammer Dracula films?
Like I said, I think this would have been probably my favourite if they pulled this off and it was like half as good as I was imagining it while I was watching it. I think it would have been a really good take, and I think it would make sense that if he was getting a bit of heat in Europe, he would just go, right, okay, I'm going to fuck off to Turkey or India or something like that, where I can just lay low a bit. There's maybe like the I'm doing quotes here, civilized world is getting a little bit like hot for me, so I need to go somewhere where maybe they're a little bit more superstitious, or that I can sort of embed myself a bit more. But yeah, I would have loved to see Dracula in India, just him turning up in unusual, unexpected places. And you haven't got Van Helsing. It's another thing I was thinking, there's no like expert. In every film, there's always like someone who's like, okay, this is how you kill vampires, who turn up. But you don't have any of that. People just have to deal with it.
You've got a couple of dancers, the woman looking for her sister. They go to the police at one point, and immediately the police goes, no, how dare you accuse the Maharaja of being up to no good? Yeah. And that's it. They're just like, okay, we're on our own then. There's an interesting moment towards the end, isn't there, where there's a big car crash and there's like a big festival on the street. And I actually got a little lost at that point. I wasn't quite sure. I listened to it a couple of times. I wasn't quite sure what was going on.
So he's trying to escape in the car, and then there's a bit of a car chase, I think. There's a crash. He falls out, and there's a bit where he's got some like street children, and he's offering it to someone he's bit. He's trying to get someone to eat the child, so they would become a vampire too, and then they refuse, and I think someone gets shot or something. I listened to it twice as well, and I literally probably a couple of hours of it going. It hasn't all gone in.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it does such a good job at setting the scene for the first sort of 2/3 of it, and the end makes sense. But there is a little bit in the final third.
I remember now. There's some giant like mobile temple.
Right.
He gets run over. He gets run over by that, I think. Yeah.
I think, having listened to it twice, perhaps there's a little confusion there in terms of, I'm sure it would have made sense on screen, but in terms of sort of the radio adaptation, perhaps just being a little bit off at that.
And we've also had 3 hours of this other thing, which has probably pushed all the good stuff out of our minds.
Well, quite. Do you have much more you want to say on the Unquenchable Thirst of Dracula?
I think they set it up at the end because basically all the what's her name, Penny?
Penny,
yeah. Penny goes back to free her sister, who's like down like some oubliette with like in Dracula's larder of lots of other women. So you think, oh, that's it. She's saved the day. All those women are actually vampires. They come out and they vampirize her as well, and it kind of implies that the story's going to go on with this kind of all these female vampires. And I thought that's pretty cool. I like that sort of twist to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. It has enough twists and turns in it in general that ultimately we know at the end of the day, Dracula's going to end up dead at the end of it. And but you're never quite sure where it's going to go in sort of the 90 minutes, whereas some of the other Hammer Dracula films are a bit more like, well, they're going to die, they're not going to die, and, by the end of it, there'll be 2 people left alive. But
I think in our podcast, we're sort of going through quite a lot of like old Hammer stuff, and there's so many unmade scripts. But also there's so many characters you say, well, these guys could have their own like series,
Yeah.
And I would love there to be a ongoing like Hammer universe done in this style. I think it works really well.
Like global vampire hunters almost.
Yeah. Don't give it to Big Finish. We're going to see what they do with Dracula. But do like a series of the Hammer universe with like this. It'd be great. So if you're John Gore, if you're listening, this is the way to go. But you're never going to get another Hammer movie off the ground.
Look, I had a great time listening to this. It was a lot of fun. It's something I will revisit at some point, much like I do the Hammer films that were made. But we must rate it. Is it a clanger, a banger, or an average meander?
It's a Bengal banger.
A Bengal banger for me too. It was as good as it could have been without being the real thing, I think.
Yeah. Well, if anything, better than some of the real thing.
True.
Too hot for TV.
So the next thing we are doing is Dracula's War, which is another audio production from Big Finish Productions. It was released in September of 2020, recorded on the 27th to the 30th of August and the 3rd and 4th of September 2019 at the Moat Studios. It was written by Jonathan Barnes and produced and directed by Scott Hancock. Now, we're a few years later from our previous release. COVID-19's happened. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and there's been a bit of a downturn in the amount of releases and TV shows and things like that. So the things that are going on in genre at that time, we've got Bill and Ted's Face the Music, Color Out of Space, The Invisible Man, Possessor, The New Mutants, Tennant, and Sonic the Hedgehog. On TV, we've got Dark, What We Do in Shadows, The Boys, and Dracula by Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat. And then we've got Star Trek Picard and Discovery and Doctor Who, Series 12. Now, obviously, some of that is down to the pandemic, but you're seeing a turn there. There's much more of a mix of new stuff versus, we're doing the same old IPs again and again.
That's some of my favourite things ever you was mentioning there. That's brilliant. I love Dark.
I've never seen Dark.
Oh, man, you got to watch it. It's one of my... I was just going off about that at work again today. I think they're sick of me talking about that programme. It's so good. I mean, you got to watch it. What We Do in Shadows was like... Love it. An amazing moment. This fantastic thing of what do you do with vampires, Dracula, whatever. Let's do a sitcom. Yeah. And it works so well. They never drop the ball at any point during that series. No, I was so sad when that ended. Yeah, me too. Because I would quite happily... The sad thing about that is, had that been made 20 years before, there would have been 24 episodes a year for 10 years, and you could just jump in and out. But what can I say? All the episodes are perfect. Yeah, I keep going to a church to my kids and then forgetting there's masturbation jokes in the very first episode. I go, oh no, better turn this off. What are they doing? No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Ah.
But a great year for horror films, I think, and genre fiction starting to look a bit forward again instead of back, unless you include Bill and Ted and Sonic the Hedgehog.
Well, and Tenet, because it's going forwards and back.
Too hot for TV.
England, 1917, the height of the First World War, decades after the events of Transylvania, as the nation's desperation and mass death create the conditions for old horrors to resurface. Mina Harker and a resurrected Van Helsing become drawn back into a secret plot to create an army of vampires to win the war, which is intertwined with Mina's son's Quincy's fate fighting on the front lines. With Dracula resurrected, a final showdown takes place between Van Helsing, Mina, and Dracula.
Too hot for TV.
So, we come to Dracula's War. It's a brand new audio. So, Big Finish do an adaptation of Dracula, then they do something called Dracula's Guests, and then they do Dracula's War. You've not heard this before?
No, and I thought it was a really good idea, Dylan, to listen to the last part of a trilogy without hearing the other bits and just being dropped in the middle of a load of continuity with characters you got no idea what's happening.
Well,
so thanks for that.
I didn't quite know that they were so interconnected, because obviously we all know the story of Dracula, so we didn't need to do that one.
No.
I'll be honest with you, I thought they were 3 one-hour plays. So I was a little bit surprised to find that it was 3 one-hour plays in this box set alone. But we both jumped into the deep end on this because I'd not heard it before either. And sometimes when you're exploring the worlds of expanded media, you just have to go...
You've got to start somewhere, haven't you?
Yeah. You've got to jump in and go, do you know what? I can't do all 9 hours of this. No. And to be honest with you, I don't think doing the previous 6 hours would have made me love this anymore.
No, not at all. I think I would have killed myself. Sorry, trigger warning for discussion of suicide in this episode.
Let's jump straight into the script, the story. Because I do think it's all there. Like, there are obviously characters that, if you're a long-term listener, you've met before, but I think it's all there. So, this 3-hour story, how do we feel about it? Well,
you say we could just jump in. I from the beginning, I was like, there's something missing here. And I listened to it. I was like, I said, check the files, looked at the numbering of the files, went online to say, well, does it really start here? I found it incredibly tedious. I listened to it. I went to see some friends in Wales. So I listened to it on the way up there, on the way back. And I was saying to my wife today, there were several times when I was just going, fucking get on with it. Just, oh my God, just do something. And it was one of those. I was saying it's audio, so there's no budget restrictions about where they can go, what they can do, and it was just. I've written down here, before they say anything, they talk about the fact they're about to say it, and then they talk about it whilst they're saying it. They use multiple words to describe everything, and then they have several scenes. So the thing they say they're going to do, they think they've done it, and then they come back and they're still doing it, and it's just nothing's happening in this thing. It's infuriating. It feels like a 14-year-old boy has written this, and he's just worked out how to use a thesaurus, because every time they describe something, they use about 4 or 5 different describing words, and the most obscure describing words you can think of. Because it's almost like they think it's cool that they're using words which you've never heard of to describe that thing. And I don't know if they're trying to emulate the style of the Dracula books, but
I think they are.
It's done badly.
It is like, it feels to me like not only is the author Jonathan Barnes trying to emulate the style of old literature, which by its nature is dated and progresses, but they still manage to pack a story into 200-300 pages a lot of the time. Not 6,000 pages.
Dracula's exciting. They go all over Europe. They're rushing around all over the place, chasing, and it's just nothing fucking happens.
And it also feels to me like the commissioners, somebody at Big Finish went, the only way this works is if one person writes it, and it's 3 hours, and it's 3 CDs in the box set, and that's a format that's going to work for us with this amount of cast, and you just work with that. Because I think there's a tight 1 hour in this. Because the story itself isn't bad, but it somehow manages to prolong it so much that there's zero tension, zero pace. And then the last 20 minutes or so is quite exciting.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, well, this is what I want from a Dracula story. Dracula doesn't show up until disc 3.
No, but there's a point you go, oh, okay, after the first 45 minutes, something exciting's happened. Oh, okay, now they're just talking again. It starts off with the King of England at the time describing a dream he's had. And it's like, this character of the king doesn't need to be in it at all. And they keep going back to this guy. The first sort of half an hour is about trying to get him to sign a bit of paper so that they can go and do this idea they got that they're going to resurrect Dracula and get him to make vampire armies to win the First World War.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah, but just show that, not just people talking about doing it. And the whole idea that they had to get him to sign a bit of paper in order to be able to do that, there's no point anyone goes, can I see the bit of paper the king signed to say you were like, it's just useless. I don't know why to do it. He described, it's almost like so they can have a cool pre-credits sequence, and that's quite interesting, but doesn't go anywhere. And it's just interminable.
So Dracula's Guests is set 40 years before this, so there can't be that much continuity. There's obviously the thing that Van Helsing has died in Dracula's Guests, I guess, because they resurrect him here, which is quite a nice idea of like, oh, the only way we can fight the living dead is to bring back the person who was trying to kill the living dead.
And they wrong foot you, because I don't know if I was just being naive, but I thought the nuns who resurrect Van Helsing were resurrecting Dracula at that point.
Yeah, me too, because I thought that's when the story's going to properly kick in.
Yeah, and I was actually quite like, oh, that's exciting. They brought back Van Helsing. Yeah,
but it's all the right story beats there. It's like, this, in theory, is exciting. I'm assuming that those nuns who have taken care of this painting that can resurrect people are in Dracula's Guests, but... Okay,
yeah. Or maybe they just get given the painting at the end of the...
Yeah.
So the painting is essentially a Horcrux. Like Dracula seems to have put bits of himself in, a bit of him in the painting. It implies that Mina has been either impregnated by Dracula, because they have Quincy Harker, obviously named after the Quincy who died in Dracula, is Jonathan Harker and Mina Harker's son, but they kind of imply that maybe Dracula fathered the child, or he put part of himself into the child. It might be in the fact that maybe he was in control of Mina while... Oh, yeah. Go and listen to the rather than me just guess what happened. If you're actually that interested, go and listen to it. But that's what the impression I got.
I do think if you're doing something like this, it has to be accessible, because it's not like it goes, Dracula's War is volume 3, you know? There is Dracula, Dracula's Guests, and Dracula's War. You should be able to. Good writing and good marketing is you can jump into these at any point. And the fact that we are struggling with bits of it, I don't know whether it's the lack of continuity or just the incoherentness of this stretched out story.
Well, the amount of just them talking to each other in rooms, they could have filled in some of that stuff for us. Right, there's a bit of dialogue written, and it's also the delivery of it, which is infuriating. So here's a bit of dialogue from Van Helsing. I salute the courage of you both. There is, in this place, I have no doubt, some means of egress, but what it is, I have, at this present moment, not the slightest notion. It's rather than saying, I don't know how to get out of this. It was just like, they have so many commas in every sentence of like, just words and words and words and words. Don't like words.
I also just don't think people spoke like that. I know language has evolved and changed, but like, no one's having a conversation where they're saying the same thing 19 times over.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not practical.
No, especially when it's in a point of, they're in danger. Just get to the fucking point. Anyway, they need these different parts in order to bring Dracula back, and they got these convent of nuns who are protecting this painting. I thought that's quite a clever mechanism to have one of the nuns blind, so therefore there's a reason for everyone explaining to her what's happening.
Yeah,
and that worked. But then after that point, it just got weird, the people describing things, where I'm missing Michael Sheen coming in and explaining it to me.
Well, Michael Sheen would do it in 30 seconds and with a bit of gusto.
Yeah.
But it cuts between the characters that we're hearing talking, and it's a big cast. So it's not like they need, when they jump to the narration, which is essentially diary entries, which I guess, as we said, is trying to be sort of true to the original material.
Mm.
But it just elongates it. It's like this, more than anything, needed to be a full cast audio drama, and there's no reason why it isn't. I don't need any of those diary entries. I get from the scenes that we have already exactly what's going on. I get no new information.
No extra information at all.
Yeah, like, apart from maybe the author just can't figure out how to describe the action scenes.
Yeah, there isn't a diary entry for every part of it. So, but then there is a weird bit where there's a diary entry for a bit where the person who's writing the diary entry wasn't there. So it starts off with saying, I wasn't there, but what I imagined happened was, and then he starts talking about like Dracula in a half bat form or clinging to the side of the train, coming through the window, what a discussion between two characters were, and this whole sort of, but it's like, there's other parts of the story where things like this were happening without people doing a diary entry. Why put it in a diary entry and make it out by somebody who wasn't witnessing this? It was so bizarre. Who was editing this? There was no one there going, that doesn't make sense, mate.
Yeah.
Cut that out.
It strikes to me as someone who's not comfortable with writing for the audio medium and nobody picking him up on it, because
Big Finish writers just write shitloads. So was he written other stuff?
No.
Really?
Jonathan Barnes has had a couple of novels out, and I can see why a novelist would have trouble potentially moving to audio, because there's so much you can say on the page in a novel that is difficult to transfer into the audio.
I'm really surprised that Mark Gatiss was involved with this and didn't stick his oar in, because you can see like his involvement in the Unquenchable Thirst of Dracula. I feel like his hand was, he wrote and directed it, didn't he? So like, this is someone who knows this stuff inside out.
Maybe they went to him with the first one and went, well, we might do some more. And then by the time they got to the third one, they were like, we're writing another one. Have you got an afternoon free? He was like, I've got an afternoon. So like, don't put him in till the end.
Yeah.
He probably only got the script for the last one. Maybe the other two are better. I'm assuming the first one is at least better.
Yeah, I want to listen to the first one. I'm going to do that. Yeah, and also John took the picture on the cover as well, so that's where I'm going to...
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he's done quite a lot of, not so much now, but he did quite a lot of stuff for Big Finish. And he spent the afternoon with Mark on one of these recordings, just talking about Roger Moore and James Bond films and stuff.
Oh, amazing. Lucky him. I mean, not if you had to sit through them recording this for...
Yeah.
So how do we feel about this backdrop of World War One?
It's open to endless possibilities and could be so amazing. And like, one of the reasons I thought it'd be great to do this, because I felt like the idea of like an army of vampires led by Dracula in World War One would be fucking amazing. The cover looks amazing.
Vampires in trenches. It's such an exciting idea.
And they kind of tease it in that dream sequence at the beginning.
Yeah.
And there's no reason not to do it, because you've got no restrictions on this at all. And all you get is some vampires on 100 soldiers on a train turned into vampires.
Yeah.
Which are swiftly taken out by a 45-year-old woman and a resurrected octogenarian with like enough stakes that they can just carry themselves.
Yeah.
And so I was saying to Beck, it's ridiculous that they took out 100 vampires on that train, really swiftly as well. So, but then Dracula said, I will only need 100 men and I'll win the First World War for you.
Yeah.
But they got taken out by these two people with a couple of stakes. So everyone on that battlefield's got a bayonet on there.
Yeah.
So they were not a formidable force at all. So it just sort of completely negates the whole premise of the thing.
Yeah, it's very bizarre because it's the infinite possibility that is there, and it's just squandered on this meandering story. And we're left with a female vampire locked up that feeds off someone and they turn into vampires. And I don't
need any of that.
Don't need any of that. Like, by the time we get to the train, but actually, by the time we're in the forest in the third one and they're being pursued by a wolf that is the form of Dracula, and then they get onto the train, I'm suddenly like, okay, this is what I wanted from episode 1. And then we'd go somewhere else. Like, that final hour was quite an entertaining story for me, but it just took too long to get there.
So for me, that's why I never got that wolf was Dracula. I thought that must have had something to do with the origin story of that female vampire, because I think that was her village. Whatever that storyline, because it was another painting, they got put into another painting. So just when it's all kicking off in World War One, sort of like Europe, and there's vampires on it. They just take the main protagonists out and stick them in
the village from Scars of Dracula.
Yeah, some fantasy place, and it felt to me like they were like reliving some kind of storyline from something else which I haven't seen before. Yeah, it was just really bizarre.
What do you think about the use of Dracula within it?
I thought Mark did obviously he's my friend, so I just call him Mark. I think
Marky G.
Yeah, Marky. Yeah, I thought he was really good, and I think it's obviously the role he's always wanted to play. He can get away with not looking like Dracula at all on audio. Yeah, I thought it was really good. I liked they managed to sort of resurrect him in the body of Mina Harker's son, so that he was like chained up when they resurrected him. So it was quite nice that they brought him back, but they had him contained.
Yeah,
and that was quite cool. And I liked the way that he was just like just saying, "I see that you've got the," and I love it when anyone calls Jesus the Nazarene because it always makes you think of the Omen. He said, "I see you've got the cross of the Nazarene, and if you ever take that off, I will kill you straight away."
Yeah.
And that was really cool. And I like the way he feeds on someone and then just opens the door, grabs someone else and just drags them in and feeds on them as well. I thought he was really good and completely wasted in this.
Yeah.
But I don't like all the hissing. I don't like hissing vampires. It just seems silly.
No, I think it's something who was the first hissing vampire? I'm sure it was a Hammer horror film or something like that.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I like the use of Dracula. And again, I think trying to use Dracula as a weapon is exciting. And I like the fact that he immediately just sort of, within about 10 minutes, he's gone, no, I'm not having this. And actually, you're under my control.
Yeah.
Mark Gatiss is somebody who has been associated with Dracula for me since my teenage years. And, he obviously wrote the Dracula series for the BBC. He played a vampire in Being Human, I think, as well, in one of the later series.
I keep trying to get into Being Human. I never. It's Russell Tovey, man. I don't know about him.
If he's not shagging a fish, I'm not interested.
No, exactly.
I loved Being Human when it was first on, and I think I was just the right age for it to be a really exciting drama. But I would never want to watch it again because I've got such good memories of it. I know it'd be shit. Yeah,
because I was saying to you on WhatsApp the other day, I started watching Life on Mars, and I don't think I can't have watched it because it seems so different to what I imagine this program to be. But it's going okay. But I can see my kids are just not getting into it because it's just like TV used to be like lots more episodes of stuff.
Yeah,
and they just want the storyline of like him being in a coma just to get on with that.
Yeah,
this is the interesting part of the story. Why are we messing around with like the criminal of the week which they're trying to catch?
Yeah,
we want the mythology and we want the overall storyline to be addressed, not any of this stuff which is just like how can we keep this concept treading water until we get cancelled and then we'll wrap up the big story.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different structure and a different way of storytelling, and also ultimately, like you're watching it 20 years later.
Yeah,
that's the equivalent of being sat down in 1990 and watching Spearhead from space.
Yeah. Yeah,
which, as you know, was the only Doctor Who entirely shot on film.
Really? Okay.
You should tell the guys from the podcast about it.
I'm writing that down. That's an interesting bit of trivia.
Anyway, Mark Gatiss' Dracula works for me, and I would be interested in hearing the first part that is the actual adaptation to hear him in full flow there. But I also feel by the end of it, Dracula's disposed of, Van Helsing's disposed of, and I guess this is the return of the Jedi, right? This is the final part of the trilogy. But it doesn't feel like a big, exciting end to me, because the story's just meandered so much to get there in the 3 episodes we've heard.
Yeah, it just fizzles. They kind of imply that they're going to resurrect him again in America, but that's about it, really. Yeah,
well, look out for that one,
Yeah.
What do we think of the rest of the cast? Are there any standout performances? Are there any characters that particularly work for you?
There was a soldier who just kept saying "sir" the whole time. Yes, sir. Well, of course I'll do that, sir. Sir, why? And it was just like that was what I was shouting at the radio. The wireless in the car when I was
For me, this is everything that can go wrong with audio drama in terms of the casting, and there's lots of clearly reasonably posh people, some of them doing working class accents, some of them being posh, all sounding the same.
Yeah.
It's what I imagine most people think audio drama is like, which it's not. Just the last thing we've reviewed If you listen to any of the Doctor Who reviews I do on the Doctor Who podcast, there is so much variety and so many varieties of voice and production values and stories you can tell. But this, every voice just sort of blends into one of a bunch of people being a bit posh and sounding a bit too drama school. So it's already up against it for me with that before you throw in a 3-hour shit script.
Yeah. Is anyone still listening to this?
Jonathan Barnes.
Jonathan's like, he's just crying.
Don't
taking
worry.
his medicine.
This will be a smooth 20 minutes in the edit.
Yeah.
Do you think that Dracula could work as an audio series?
Yes. Of course it could. It's an amazing story. And we've just, like we said, we just heard a really good first episode of like a Dracula expanded universe done really well.
It just blows my mind that a company who've made some really great audio stories can just churn this out.
No, the premise of the story would have been really, really good.
Yeah.
It's just the way they did it was just tedious.
I can imagine the synopsis, the pitch being like, this is going to be really exciting. But yeah. Just so this review doesn't go on for 3 hours, is there anything else you want to say on this?
Just don't bother with it.
It's true.
Yeah, just go and watch Bram Stoker's Dracula again.
Indeed. Or listen to The Unquenchable Thirst of Dracula.
Yes, if you can find it.
So, we must rate it. A clanger, a banger, or an average meander?
It's a bang. No, it's the clangiest of clangers.
Yeah, it's a big clanger from me. It just missed the mark completely.
Yeah.
Too hot for TV.
Before we wrap things up, I just want to know, what do you think makes a good Dracula sequel?
Oh, man. I like the idea of that there's this ancient being which has just always been in the shadows and has taken, every so often, to take his opportunity to go in and fuck up some people's lives. And then the friends getting together and trying to deal with that. I think there is opportunities to sort of take that out and then maybe have a bigger stories, like the idea of using Dracula to make an army in the First World War. That's a really great idea. But I think we've just got to remember that he's not all powerful. He's not like a god. He's pretty vulnerable, and I think that's one of the reasons why. And if you look at lots of like older stories, that vampires do hide a lot of the time because they are very vulnerable. Like, they are completely vulnerable during the daytime, and if you know what you're doing, there's ways of dispensing them. So they've got to be sneaky about what they're trying to do. And I like the way that Dracula comes from like a lineage of like the upper class, and it's someone who would prey upon weaker people and that kind of stuff. And I also like the way that he's got people who are like his minions. I like the idea of like having a Renfield, or having like a group of gypsies who are the ones who are going to move him around and stuff. And in the book where he's like always just one step ahead of you. Like you think you've got him, but then you realise, he's on the ship and we're going to go and chase him now. And it's more of an adventure story. I'm not that interested in he's someone who is after your girlfriend and your girlfriend's actually really got the hots for him. So that kind of thing. I think it's something which does work when you bring it into different times because he is immortal. Although one of the things I was thinking is that if you were immortal and you were like thousands of years old, wouldn't you just be bored of this, like, okay, and I'm going to go and... But I suppose this is maybe a way of him making it more interesting for himself. It's like, rather than I'm just going to go and feed on anyone, it's like, okay, what I'm going to do is just like get really obsessed with this one person. and I'm going to like just follow them, watch them for a bit, follow them around. Maybe that just makes it more interesting for him. And that whole thing, like, and what I do, I'll mess up her husband's job and stuff, and I'll get like embroiled in that and make him come over here for a bit and then like mess around with him. I like that kind of cat and mouse kind of thing.
I think it's the manipulation that Dracula's able to do, or the vampire's able to do, of like, whether it is a cult or a group of like Satanists who are out for kicks, or just some hot young woman or a group of travelers. It's like, it's the cat and mouse. It's going, I'm going to fuck around with these people because I've got nothing else to do. I've been alive forever. I read all the books. I've seen all of Netflix. I'm Dracula, playing with human lives as I pick them off one by one. It's an interesting game. I think when you put that in with different types of people, different cultures, different places, you can essentially tell the same story again and again and not get bored. So it blows my mind that one of these that we've done did it so well, and the other just sort of fucked around for 3 hours and in a really interesting setting and just did nothing.
When I first watched the Stephen Moffat, Mark Gatiss Dracula, I was a little bit disappointed because I thought it was just going to be like a retelling of the Dracula story. And then when it suddenly started twisting around and then he woke up and he was in the modern day, I was half like excited, but half like, oh, no, why are they messing around with this story? But now I've gone back recently and watched it. I think this is brilliant. They've done a really, really good job of this. And I think that was one of my favourite sort of adaptations of it.
I really need to rewatch that because I remember really liking the second episode and finding the other 2 episodes tonally a bit weird. But I think I was putting my own expectations on it. And actually, I think I just want to go back and rewatch it because a lot of people have said to me, it's so much better when you go back the second time.
Yeah, I think that I find that a lot, that going back without any expectations on stuff, particularly things which you really like.
Yeah.
Now, you guys have got me going back and watching Jodie Whittaker's Doctor Who, and it's so much better than I remember it because I was just like, it just wasn't what I was expecting and wanting at the time.
Yeah.
I was just like pushing it away.
But also Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat, at that time it was Stephen Moffat's Doctor Who and their version of Sherlock, which were all like twists and turns of, oh, you're not going to believe what's happened. Yeah. And actually, it's quite a linear story, the Dracula they tell, even if it's got a time jump, obviously, for that final episode. And it just needs you to sort of put all that, oh, but actually, you know, this is going to be happening and that's the subplot. It's like, actually, no, just follow the story and enjoy yourself. And
I think the Van Helsing in that is my second favourite after Anthony Hopkins. So I thought she was really, really good in that.
Excellent. I'm going to watch that again very soon. Right. If people don't know you or your podcasts, where can they find you and your podcasts?
So just look up generalwitchfinders.com or type in General Witchfinders wherever you get your podcasts. And we cover mainly British horror, lots of Hammer stuff. And we've also got a zine as well, which Dylan wrote in the last one. So check that out as well. Just go to generalwitchfinders.com. And there's also some cool Dracula t-shirts on that website as well. So go and check that out.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, as it helps people to find the pod. Look for Too Hot for TV on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube at Too Hot, 4 pod. That's Too Hot, 4 pod for the latest updates and additional content. Next time, I'll be joined by Ian Martin and we'll be talking about the expanded universe of The X-Files. But until then, I've been Dylan.
And I've been Ross.
And this has been Too Hot for TV.
Too hot for TV.
The Francis Ford Coppola movie. Have I said that right?
Coppola?
Coppola, yeah. I think I said it in a way like
Copula.
Copper, yeah. It was like
copulate?
Shit, like shit loving. What's when someone was is it copulify? Copulify? Anyway, might want to cut that out.
Too hot for TV.
As always, we're talking about Dracula. Well, I'll say
not
that
as
again.
always.
No, as
For
always.
the first time ever.
Too hot for TV.